sloppy lately. Uh, of course, there were the holidays, the festive season, Christmas, New Year's, and also winter was biting a bit, so I was not really in the mood to make such videos outdoors. Now it's getting a bit better, so I'll probably also resume my outdoor sports schedule. So I'll start doing daily updates soon. Thanks a lot for bearing with me in this long break. We have very interesting updates from the world, as you all know, and also from Romania. So internationally, I guess it's open season. It's open season at expansionism. Trump just shredded the international rules-based order, as they liked to call it, shredded it to pieces, and proclaimed himself the reestablisher of the American Empire in its original version. So in the land land-based version, rather than this current iteration, which is a bit postmodern. So based on the supremacy of the dollar and all of these fancy things. No, Trump reinstated the old conquering land type of empire. So, with his announcements of annexing Canada, annexing or buying up Greenland, and perhaps annexing the Panama Canal, he essentially gave credit. He essentially endorsed all the expansionist moves by Russia, by China. Well, they're not really expansionist that much in case of China, because Taiwan is actually recognized internationally as part of China, irrespective of which Chinese government each state recognizes. Most of them recognize Beijing, but some of them recognize Taipei. But still, there's no country on earth that actually disputes that Taiwan is just a Chinese island. It's just an island that forms part of the same country as mainland China. But in the case of Russia, yeah, sure, there is some potential expansionism in its historical lands, what's going on now in Ukraine, and with Trump's announcement of essentially creating this greater North American Union, annexing the Anglo-Saxon neighbors, annexing Canada under the guise of being another Anglo-Saxon Protestant country. So essentially using the same argument as Putin for Ukraine, he essentially shredded the illusion. So it's not like he shredded international law, because international law was not being followed for quite some time, especially by America and by its proxies. So by the United States, by Israel, by the NATO countries through their interventions. But at least there was this hypocrisy of claiming that there was such a thing as an unwritten international rules-based order whose rules nobody ever saw, but apparently it was just some arbitrary decision by the United States whether or not to recognize the independence of a country, like in the case of Kosovo, or to claim as a higher principle the territorial integrity of a country, like in the case of Crimea. It was all of this arbitrary dealing, and now Trump, with his announcements, he essentially put away the hypocrisy and called things for what they are. So we have a world of empires, of great powers, just like in the 19th century, in the beginning of the 20th century, before the First World War. We are coming back to that order, where there is no higher principle, no self-determination, no, I don't know, peaceful coexistence, no territorial integrity, none of these bullshit principles which were weakly upheld through the League of Nations, and then also a bit upheld in a bit of a stronger manner through the United Nations after the Second World War, but as we've come to see, not strong enough. So nowadays it's open season for territorial expansion again, just like 100 and some years ago. And I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because we were, many of us, the realists, were arguing that this is how actually the world works. And all of this principled talk is just a disguise for the imperialist ambitions of the United States to keep its neo-colonial empire. And now it's turning its neo-colonial empire into a per se colonial empire or a classical land-based empire. We will see. But anyway, so yeah, I would say good news from the Trump front, and also the fact that he's now being inaugurated and he seized on this opportunity to issue, both him and Melania, some cryptocurrencies in some pump and dump scheme reminiscent of the Tate brothers. Um, I think it also serves to put the illusion away for people that the United States is anything but a scam. That is, it is anything but a business. Um, in the sense that if you own capital, then you can basically scam the suckers that are at the bottom of society, the unsophisticated investors, so to say. Um, there's no higher principle than that in American society and in this late stage capitalism. So nowadays, at least, things are clear. They're out in the open. There's no more room for illusion. So I think that's a good step forward. Regarding what's going on in Romania, we are in the middle of the unraveling of the old system and the birth of the new system, the birth of sovereigntism. Um, the illegitimate government that has been sworn in by the illegitimate president, uh, that has extended illegally his mandate according to the illegal decision made by the Constitutional Court. So this government set the date for the elections, the presidential elections, and it's going to be in May. First round on the 4th of May, and then the second round on the 18th of May. The only problem is the people who do not recognize the legitimacy of the decision made by the Constitutional Court will also not recognize these elections and the outcome of these elections. So right now the Romanian public is demanding a return to the second round when the elections were cancelled, when the elections were stopped and then annulled. And the people asking for that will not settle for a new election process, involving gathering signatures and filing in the candidacies and getting them approved, vetted by the um, Electoral Council and subsequently by the Constitutional Court. So, given that they did all that just to prohibit Călin Georgescu from winning the election, it's obvious that they will do it again. I mean, why would you stage a coup d'etat and then allow your opponent, allow the guy that you staged the coup d'etat against, to run and be successful? I mean, the opinion polls show that he would win by a landslide in case uh, he he were permitted to run. But I think his strategy will be not to file in his candidacy because, first of all, he does not recognize the legitimacy of the government and the legitimacy of the new elections, and because he has some legal cases pending at the European level, at the European Court for Human Rights, um, and also because it's quite predictable that they will not they will not let him run. So if he files in his candidacy, he would legitimize their coup d'état, and he would no longer have a um, credible point in saying that there was a coup d'état if he decides to actually file in his candidacy. But at the same time, it's pretty certain that they would not let him run. If by any chance they approve his candidacy and they let him run, for sure they will again cancel the elections on all sorts of pretexts. You know, it's so easy to just do that, just like they did the first time. So the first time around, they canceled the elections by claiming that Georgescu had some unwarranted advantage, undeserved advantage on TikTok, who the hell cares? I mean, it's it's not the first time that a candidate has some sort of advantage on a social network. This is not a reason to cancel elections. As long as the ballots were correctly counted, as long as those people went in to vote, and in the second round even more people would have come to vote for him, it doesn't really matter whether or not on some social network he has a stronger presence than other people, which actually was not the case on TikTok. So he was the fourth strongest candidate on TikTok, but he just had a good point. He had a good message, and that's what convinced people to vote for him and not for the people who had even greater visibility there. But just like the Constitutional Court came up with these absurd reasons the first time around, I'm sure in case Călin Georgescu wins, they will come with equally stupid reasons of claims of electoral interference by some other state agent. Of course, in the case of Russia, they proved nothing, and the TikTok campaign that they claimed to have been paid for by Russia and to have been a copycat of a similar campaign that they did in Ukraine before the invasion, that was proved to have been financed by the party of the president. So the sitting president, the incumbent and the imposter, the usurper of the presidential seat, his party, the National Liberal Party, was the one that financed that campaign for Călin Georgescu. So that was the Russian interference the first time around. Of course, now the story goes, this is what the supporters of the coup believe. This is what they've been fed, and this is what they believe now, that there is some sort of secret evidence pointing to Russian interference, but it's so secret that not only that the authorities will not make it public, they will not even say that it exists, and furthermore, they will not issue any kind of protest to the Russian ambassador, as it is usually the case when there is such interference, and they will also not charge Călin Georgescu for it, because charging him and prosecuting him would force them to reveal this extremely secret evidence, which is so secret that they won't even say it exists. But this is what the people believe, so they believe that there is some untold secret evidence that the government is not even claiming it exists. There's just some government influencers claiming it. It's amazing how they consider us to be the conspiracy thinkers, whereas they believe such absurdities, such absurdities. The fact that there is no evidence of Russian interference is the strongest evidence that there is a huge amount of interference, and it's so serious that it cannot even be talked about. That's how serious it is, This is the level of stupidity of these people. But anyway, so this is the story that goes around. This is the story that some people believe, and this will make the case for the Constitutional Court to basically cancel the elections again, or not let him run, or whatever, just on arbitrary reasons, just like the first time around. So I don't think there is a good chance of seeing Călin Georgescu president, even though he's leading the polls by a huge margin, because of course the people who orchestrated the coup d'etat are now quite afraid. They're quite afraid that if he came to power, then they would probably be prosecuted for this coup attempt. So they will stick with the coup. They will stick to their story and try to do their best to have somebody else elected, to get somebody else elected. Now I think the best strategy would be to have Călin Georgescu continue his fight in the international courts and to continue the pressure at the international level, and not to recognize the new elections, while at the same time to have another sovereigntist candidate, say Georges who is now at Trump's inauguration, invited by the Republican administration through the ECR parliamentary group, whose vice president he is, the European Conservatives and Reformists group in the European Parliament, which is led by Giorgia Meloni. So this whole group is invited to Washington D.C. for Trump's inauguration, and Georges Simeon is there. So maybe he would run for president. He said that he would not run in case Călin Georgescu runs. So probably the best thing would be for Călin Georgescu not to run and for Simeon to run and to win, because he would inherit all of Călin Georgescu's let's say electoral capital, and we would have yeah, we would have more bullets. So one bullet, one shot at the presidency would be through Călin Georgescu, through the reversal of the decision of the Constitutional Court, done at the behest of the international community. The second one would be with Georges Simeon, whose candidacy was not annulled the first time. He was allowed to run. He came in fourth, and because Călin Georgescu came in first, but now without Călin Georgescu, probably he would come in first. And he's not demonized and vilified to the level that Călin Georgescu is. So I don't think they would annul his candidacy now. And yeah, to have him as president, and then we'll see. This is, I think, the winning strategy. But at least we have several streaks towards multipolarity. We have several paths away from the globalist one. One is through AUR, the Alliance for the Union of Romanians, with Georges Simeon. They are Trumpists, so they are aligned with the new Trump administration. We have SOS, the Save Romania. No, actually, I don't know what SOS stands for, but the party of Șoșoacă, who is with BRICS. She went to the inauguration of Maduro, so we're pretty much hedged in the sovereigntist movement here in Romania. A part of the sovereigntist movement is with Trump, another part is with Maduro, with the dictators of the world, so to say. So with BRICS, we do not put all our eggs in the same basket, and we'll see what happens. So this is what I wanted to tell you for today, and stay tuned. Thanks for watching, and I'll come back to doing regular updates now that spring is coming. Bye bye.